In Egypt, tens of thousands of people are rallying to demand swifter reforms and speedy trials for officials of the former regime. Crowds are gathering in Suez, in the coastal city of Alexandria, and in Tahrir Square in the capital, Cairo. That rally expected to be the biggest ever since the uprisings that toppled Hosni Mubarak's government. Now, nearly 1,000 people were killed and more than 6,000 injured during that 18-day uprising. And now activists say more than 7,000 people, mostly political dissidents, have been arrested in the last 5 months. Among the officials of the previous regime, at least 8 ministers are in custody and are being investigated. Let's go to Ayman Mohyeldin, who's in Tahrir Square for us, and just give us an update on the situation behind you. Ayman, still very loud and looking to get bigger.
Absolutely. A short while ago, Friday prayers wrapped up. And, from a lot of the accounts we've been hearing, most of the people were going to start to come to Tahrir after Friday prayers. We've been here since the early hours of the morning. Numbers definitely in the thousands. This is by far the largest Friday protest or any protest that has taken place across Egypt since the end of President Hosni Mubarak's term in office on February the 11th. Now, as you mentioned, it is taking place across the country, not only here in Cairo, but also in Alexandria, and reports as well of protests taking place in the port city of Suez, giving you a sense really that it is a nationwide movement calling for the progress that is taking place in this country to be sped up, and at the same time that the trials that are underway against some of the regime officials that you mentioned be accelerated and, more importantly, be done transparently and swiftly.
And a couple of interesting elements to today's demonstrations, Ayman. Firstly, the Muslim Brotherhood once again getting involved in what's going on. And secondly, the government has said it's not going anywhere near it. Is that right? The security measures have been very hands-off this time.
It is, yeah. Let me start off with the Muslim Brotherhood. First, they originally said that they were not going to participate in these protests. Now, throughout the course of the last several months, they have been very reluctant to participate in protests that really had to do with issues about the political reform, particularly about the debate having to deal whether it should be the constitution that should be written first or whether it should be the elections first. They've tried to refrain from protests that put the center of those protests about that particular issue, and they've also been somewhat reluctant to criticize the military council of Egypt that is running the affairs of the country. However, this week they've had a change of heart. They felt that there were legitimate issues that the protesters were trying to raise, and so there has been somewhat of a change in the agenda, and at least in the banner of what these protests are about. These protests have changed their titles a few times. Today, the slogan that is defining these protests is "Revolution First." They want to continue keeping up the pressure on the military council to deliver the spirit of the revolution. But as you mentioned also, there are some tangible issues here in Tahrir about security, and that is the Ministry of Interior and the military are nowhere to be seen. The Ministry of Interior issued a statement saying that they were not going to be present to avoid any confrontation or friction with the protesters. There's a very high level of mistrust between the ordinary Egyptians and their security force. It's going to take a long time to repair that. We saw last week those clashes erupt between the Ministry of Interior security forces and the protesters. So most of the security that is happening today in Tahrir is being strictly provided by the protesters themselves and popular committees set up by the organizers.
As the numbers grow, it'll be interesting to see how that works out. Ayman, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Ayman Mohyeldin, live in Cairo.